All right, good afternoon. It looks like we are live. We are resuming our data exploration for the Big Data Bowl. Where we had left off last time is we were trying to join together the formation information to the rushing stats. What we were beginning to see is that the data set massively decreases. When we make it an inner join, we're going from just shy of 1,100 rows down to 266. And then what we had done is we'd figured out that the play ID exists for the player play data, but it's not in the plays data, which should have every single play that was run in there. So we had an instance of this open. What this does is this talks about the play ID here and the play description. But if you look, there are things that are seemingly skipped across these. So for each game ID, there should also be, for each game ID and play ID combination, there should be the information here. I'm not exactly sure what order this is in because it jumps around all over the place. But what we end up finding here is that for example, we took a specific play ID from our data set here. We were trying to find, what is play ID 8001? It should be a rushing play featuring Tom Brady, but we don't see that here. Once we go to the play IDs and we input that specific 5023 there. So I'm not even including the game ID filter. We're just looking for the specific play ID. Now if we go here, and I'm just going to change to game ID, we should see a number of plays, right? And you can see here, the ID jumps around in terms of where it is in the table. Like a play earlier in the game, or the first row as play number 631, but then later we have 465, right? Not exactly in any type of order, which makes it harder when we're searching through here. What we do see is for that game, there were 116 plays that were recorded in the data. So if I go, I want to sort values, and I do play ID. So then what I'm hoping here, so if you look, this is the negative play in the game. That's number 4016. And come down here, which game was this? This is the, but this is saying that that is played without number 8001. So then if I go to rushing stats, and I want to check, what was that number? 4016. So now that play is not in our data at all. Right, and we're seeing even in the play before it, another kneel. We go here, 3095, 3995, sorry. Another play, we don't see that here in the rushing stats as well. So issue here is that they're not matching up directly to one another. We see 3995, it's way out of whack. All right, if I go to this game, this is also probably another situation where I saw the late play in the game. So that should be play 4447. And this is trying to tell me that that play is 5023. So then let's look at the rush data table and make sure we're coming through it. So the rush here is from player rush yards. Let's add 1 minute right there. There. Hey, Ash. Yeah, working on the big data bowl data set for the Kaggle competition. Right now, just investigating why, when we're doing filtering, that we're losing a lot of the rows here. So we're losing like 70–80% of our data because it's not matching up. And when I go to the plays table, which should have that, I don't see anything even close to what that number could be in terms of the play ID. Like I said, this should be play number 5023, but when I come here, this is actually play number 4447. So not exactly sure how I'm going to tie these out to one another. Saying that this should be a rush attempt, but it's not matching up very well. So go here, this is the plays, and then we need to look at the player play. So when we see this, we've got, yeah, here's the play ID. Here are the players default. This is the last play ID in the table. Let's filter this as well. Player play. We have rush attempt. And so far less rows, but we're seeing here play number 4447. I'm not even seeing a 5023. So I'm not sure why that would be showing when we did the same filtering up here. And game ID, play ID. Oh, this may be why. Shouldn't explain why we get extra rows, but it should fix things up a bit. Missed a group by here. So we have different player rush yards. And if we go all the way down, now we don't have those wild outliers. So what was the name of my table here at the end? I forgot already. Rush data. So I still have 165 rows that are blank. That's a massive improvement over having, what was it, 800 rows before. So we go to rusher stats, 6788. Let's get rid of some of these extras. So I need to see which is what the formation is, and that's from play formation. So use this. Play formation. Play ID. What was that one? 3955. If I run this here. So this came through as shotgun. But that's not when we joined here. So game ID and play ID need to be the same. So those aren't the same. Okay. If I just tell it to give me the formation based on the game ID, $3995 is not in that data set. And so that's why we're not seeing it. This is what I believe to be happening. And so now if I take this back a step to plays. Sort values. Let's only return the fields here we're interested in. And so here's why. These are not coming back as an offensive formation. So these are likely a bunch of kneel situations. But let's just double check, see if it's a similar situation for this game. It's the last 3 plays of the game, 4, 4, 9, 3. 1, 2, 3, there you go. So interesting. So of the over 1,000 rushes, 165 of them were kneels at the end of the game. All right, so if we do this, should see much better numbers overall. So we have, okay. And then the cleanup here as well, we now have 6,000 rows. So then I feel fine changing this back to it being an inner join, because we weren't losing everything that we were before. We've got the 1060, or sorry, the 660, and then no NAs, which is fine. So now if I take this out, just rush data with 6,000 rushes. Go here, and so we see average rushing yards that we can identify the formation. We're at 4.7. So once you even adjust for the kneels, you raise the average even more. Which is great. So we figured out that issue. And now we can do, I guess, some slices based on the player information to try and see how I want to do this. So rush data. Group by. We got team. And then offense formation. Let's see this again. We lost team abbreviation. This is the player play. Run those, bring it all the way through, or we've got the team back. And then got, what do we want? Team abbreviation. Let's just do this first. And so by doing it this way, we've got a breakdown of each team and what formations they were doing the best at in terms of rushing. So let's start here. Let's go rush data. Right, and we're just going to purely look at this part here. All right, why are you doing this to me? Offense, formation, and then rushing yards. And so this is like if we were going across that league as a whole, out of the empty backfield, you were getting about 6.4 rushing yards. All right, and let's just hold this. Because there's another question is on how many attempts was that actually the case? And yeah, that's kind of what I expected. So it was rare for a team to run from the empty backfield, but when they did, it was effective. You're getting 6 yards per rush, which when the average was 4.7, you're talking about a pretty big increase compared to others. And then looking at some of these single back and shotgun, way closer to the average. The pistol is probably more limited. The jumbo package seems like defense is really keyed in on these. So when you saw the jumbo, you knew most likely it was going to be a run situation. So then you're only getting 2.4 yards on it. And now that we did this for rushing, we need to do a very similar thing on the pass attempts. right? So we can do a very similar situation here where we're just going to do the same thing but for passes. Do this. This was receiving it. Oh, had pass reception. Okay. Great, and then pass data. Thanks. So we're just duplicating these across one another. All right, Ash, have a good day. So change this to the right thing. These should be say rec yard, which means here this should say rec as well. And then stats. And we're going to do very similar comparison here, just because we're looking very high level. This should be receiving ads. Great. And then the count here as well. So go through, we got counts. So on average, well, I think I see a few things here. There were only 15 times in a jumbo package where there was actually a pass attempt here, and then that only resulted in 3.5 yards. And we saw up here, again, in the jumbo package, the number of rushing yards was 2.4. So say, in general, we would say that this would be a bad formation to look at and run a play from. You're massively reducing your options, and it seems like the defenses can key in on things pretty quickly. So you're talking, it wasn't like it was widely used across the league. We saw 15 runs, 105 runs, 15 passes. So 120 times it was run out of the 6,000 or so plays, but it always resulted in very far below average outcomes. And then a similar thing here for the Wildcat, although this was run far more often. Average was about 4.7. And we see here rushing yards, only 4 on 70 attempts, and then receiving below the average of about 10.5 as well. And those were only about 10 throws from that formation. So very similar situation to the jumbo package. If the defense sees these, they will key in on rush defense, and then massively will reduce the outcomes of this. At least here in the Wildcat, you're getting far more yardage overall on average compared to jumbo, but it's still not great. It's below, like if you're looking at this, the I formation, you're getting both more rush and above average pass yards. So why not do that as far as the formation goes from that personnel-wise? So what we're seeing here is that a few of these formations really could be removed as you're not getting great outcomes. And then I want to look at pistol as well, because I know that's below average on far more attempts. The pass upside, though, is you're getting about an additional yard per reception here, even if you're trading off about half a yard in terms of the run game. So if you key in what's the average completion rate, probably around 60%-ish, then it seems like a worthwhile trade-off purely from a pass versus run perspective in the pistol formation. But it's likely better that you have better formations available to you to get more of the yardage out. Interestingly enough, from shotgun, it actually increases your rushing yards overall, and you're about average in terms of the receiving yards. So net positive rough outcome on this is you're expecting to gain about half a yard more in the run game, and then you're getting about the same output in the pass game as well. And I think the biggest standout here is the I formation. Teams do use this quite a bit. It's about, what do we see here? Yeah, out of the 6,000 total plays here, that was 6,000 rushing plays. Out of the, yeah, it seems we're about that same range as far as receiving goes. That we're seeing a lot of the, well, very few I formation passes. When you do them, they are very effective. And then in terms of running, you're getting about average production there, and that's about 10% or so of the plays you'll see across the game in the I formation. And then the majority of what we saw here, as far as rushing goes, single back and shotgun far outweigh the other formations. But then if you add in the receiving yards, you can see a bit of warp here on shotgun, where you're far more likely to be like even in terms of your offense. You have 2,500 rushes and about 4,000 passes versus the single back formation here. You have a almost 80% likelihood to be rushing versus throwing. So defenses would hopefully key in on that, and then you're seeing that here in the yardage outcomes. So once the defense is keyed in, that's far more likely to be running here. You can use play action and take advantage of this, and that's why you're seeing an increase. And then shotgun, the inverse is true. Defenses seem to prepare for passes. You get about an average pass outcome, but then you're getting I would say almost a full deviation improvement in the run game. And so that's a more effective formation for being leaning more towards the run in terms of your outcomes here, even if they're doing it about 40 to 60% of the time from that formation. So let's see here. Coming back to breaking this down by team, if we look at I guess we'll just go team by team, or at least pick a team here and do that. So team ABR. I'm just going to pick on Arizona here. So they happen to be the first one. That's right. Great. So let's clean up these data sets a little bit more so we can quickly slice and dice on them. So we have rush data, right? And we have the receiving data. But then let's say this isn't a merge. This should be concatenating the two together. Rush data, rec data. Let's see this comes out. Okay. And if I come down here, okay, that didn't exactly work the way I wanted it to. Rush and receiving. Let's go. Pandas concatenate. Clear indexes. Don't care about that. Okay, that's the missing part of the argument here. Should be excess equals 1. If I come down here to yard data. Oh, not at all what I wanted. fine. Let's go 0. And then there we go. So get that. Now joining nicely. Names, IDs, we have rushing yards, the formation, receiving yards. So the idea here is our data. Perfect. And then if I do now, while I get that entered. Right, double bracket this. And so what we see here is that for Arizona, when we group on the offensive formation, their expected outcomes here. So I would say below average in general as far as their offense goes, but they were effective running from the shotgun formation, and then coincidentally also their most receiving yards were from that formation as well. So if I take this, did they run the majority of their offense through the shotgun is question C. And yes, that is what we see here as well. So it was their best formation in terms of the empty formation here, right? We see this again in the as like the second most in terms of the receiving, but we see you lose about a yard per reception here, and then you're also giving up like 2.8 rush yards. So if I were advising here, I would advise against using the empty formation because it just seems like you're trading a far worse overall outcome here. And it would be better to stay in that shotgun. Right, and then looking here, the second most or third most run is the pistol. We see here, though, once they shift into that pistol formation, it's better than the empty formation, but just barely. In terms of these cases, very similar overall outcomes. You have about the same receiving yards, about the same rushing yards, but you run far more heavily from this formation, and so you're not getting much out of being this formation, especially compared to shotgun. Like we do see that the majority of their offense runs through shotgun. You're talking probably about 75% of their plays are here, and it was the most effective of their options. But when they shifted it into other formations, the outcomes dropped dramatically. We see here realistically, the I-form Wildcats were barely used, but the defense was able to quickly see what was coming. You would have below average outcome as far as the rushing yards go, and then the receiving yards were non-existent because they never had a completion on those plays. So that was just picking Arizona because they had happened to be the first one there. If I go to Tampa Bay, you can see they how their play selection changed as well. Very little use of the jumbo and the pistol package. The empty formation they would typically throw out of, but you had far less effectiveness here. What you see is way above average production from the pistol, which they ran very effectively in the few times that they ran it. And then the I formation here, most likely these, because it's only 4 receptions here, these are play action passes, and you catch the defense by surprise. So that is the whole desired outcome here. What is interesting to note is that these were also above average run formations for them. Given the output of their offense, you can see here the I formation, they ran 32 times. They were averaging about 4.2 yards on those, which is far better than their two most run, which was the shotgun and the single back. They ran most of their runs from the single back formation. It seems like the defenses were able to tell that this was coming. As we see here, 80% of the time they rush and the defense keys in on this and really stuffs the runs out. And then you can see here the majority of their passes actually come out of the shotgun formation, and defenses were aware of this again. Another like 80% of the time they're going to go throw the ball here, and below average in terms of the league for the receiving yards, and then also below average outcome from the rush as well. So not sure which season this was for Tampa, but you have kind of ineffective offense when we see them come out here in the shotgun and the single back, where it seems like the defense is pretty able to key in. A good note here, though, is from that single back formation. They were able to cash in and have higher than average receiving yards. They just didn't do it many times. You're talking about across the 16 or 17 game season, it's only once or twice that you'll see that play in a game, and then you're almost guaranteeing yourself first down outcome once you do it. So another thing to note is that these are purely the the receptions, had reception versus had rushing attempt. So there's still more, like this isn't the full picture of the data, right? These are only receptions. If we include just how many times there was a passing attempt, do these numbers change? And we would need to look into that. So we'll put that kind of on our backlog overall. So from here, you're getting an idea of the percentages of snaps that they're playing in formations, how effective those formations are. And you're starting to see for like an individual team how this comes together. These are just on the plays that you did have the desired outcome of being able to run the ball or being able to complete your pass here. So like I said, we'll put this a little bit on the back burner in terms of figuring out the passing attempt, but you're seeing the different teams and their effectiveness as well based on the formation. So if I also include game ID, this may get a little more interesting. So game ID. Oh, I forgot to include that in the group by as well. So why did this? Why was this one working? Not. Okay, same thing. Okay. Put this around here. See if that's resulted. Yeah, there we go. So now if we're looking at this on like a week-to-week basis, this, I guess, is in no particular order here. You can see very similar outcomes. About half the time in single back, half the time in shotgun, in terms of the number of plays you're running. And then go up here to the data. Very similar outcomes overall in terms of receiving and rushing. So that was it seems like a good game offensively for them. In terms of the rush attack, especially compared to this next week where you're talking about only 2 yards per rush, very few passes. I'm going to guess they all came from the shotgun. Yeah, and that's why you're seeing the data play out that way as well. But this one looks like they have a little more balance in terms of their formation and running on 25th. But again, very few actual plays. And once you get into the game, right, you're only going to have maybe 100, 120 offensive plays in total across both teams. So then you're talking about you've got maybe 60 attempts for a team, rushing and passing sometimes 70. So it's hard to do individual predictions, but you can see here some teams do have tendencies like Tampa, where if you're in the single back, you're most likely going to be running the ball. And then if you're in the shotgun, you're most likely going to be passing. So we've got that there. In terms of the outcomes. So now we're able to slice the data however we want based on teams, players, formations, run and pass outcomes. I guess the next thing to do, these are all receptions. Right, but if I go to the right, okay. So we can take this and then instead of the instead of the game ID, we could break this down based on player as well. So I'll take this one. Yeah, may as well take this one. Actually, I'll put it both. So I think these could be worthwhile. So we've got Tampa Bay. We've got NFL ID. Well, just do the display name. Typoed here. And you can start to see, like, this is the average receiving or rushing. This may be even more effective if we take this out. Let's just say receivers. So what do we see here? Rashad Perryman, I know he's a running back, but in the shotgun formation, they'll get you about an average receiving outcome, but then a way above average from the single back. My guess is that because these are very round numbers, these likely only happen like once each during the season. Then you've got something like here for Cameron Brate, who, if I remember correctly, was a tight end out of the single back formation. Probably like 2 receptions here, but both above average outcomes. Chris Godwin, receiver, similar situation on those empty formations, not or below average outcome. Same thing for shotgun, but then the single back effective when it does happen. And again, probably rare overall. You got a couple of these guys with, like I said, very round numbers, so it's likely that those had happened only once. You can see here you got Rudolph, Leonard Fournette. Out of the pistol, probably 1 reception. Single back, 3 most likely, but all effective plays, usually for first downs. Mike Evans out of the I formation, huge or above average outcomes in general, and then pistol way above average. But we know they only ran those a few times that you would get an outcome like that. But you can see as you go through an individual team like this, you can start to tell kind of who the who the best player is, but like the most effective players in terms of their opportunities to gain big yards, right? And then if you want to think about in the NFL, you got these kind of explosive plays where when you run the ball and you gain more than 20 yards, that is an explosive play. And then the receiving, you're talking when they did it, Mike Evans always generated you an explosive play outcome here. Now, it could be the case that he had 2 receptions, 1 for short yardage and another one for like 70 yards, right? Yeah, so a reception for no yardage and then 69 yards on the other one. And all of a sudden, this average is dramatically larger. But not many total receptions in those formations, but the outcomes were all good as well. So let's go to the list. Let's try and work back here. I'm going to try and find the list of fields to see, had a pass reception. We know what that outcome is, but can we do it so that way we can break down even was there a pass attempt on the play? So it's on the play data. Play. Play data has the has pass result. Okay, there is a had drop back, but that's for the individual player. Let's see what else we've got. There's nothing there. Okay, so from the play, I don't see anything. Specific to that. So what I'm seeing here is that on a given play, I can tell if quarterback had dropped back. And so I would need to change up the way the filters are working, not filters, the joins are working for the data set to incorporate that. So instead of starting with the player play outcome, we'd have to start with the play formation data set here, incorporating the had drop back, because that's coming out of plays, right? What was that? Or even the pass result, because that has a variety of outcomes: completed pass, incomplete, quarterback sack, and intercepted pass. So let's do that. All right, sorry about that. I got a few minutes here to wrap things up. So yeah, changing the structure of our joins in the data set to do it so we can incorporate the not just the completed passes, but the pass attempts overall. So that way we can get a better idea of the outcomes. Obviously, when you complete a pass, you're going to have a naturally higher average yardage, things like that. But then you need to incorporate, let's say there's a 60% completion rate, then now that average has gone from 10 to 6. And so now all of a sudden it doesn't appear to be that much more effective than running, but we do want to keep that in mind in terms of what we're doing in the data here. So I think for next time, what I will do is we will include time to go through and rework this so that way we're going off of the plays table instead of the we'll be going off the plays table instead of going off of the stats table for the individual players. So we'll start with the play information. We will then try and match all the rows that have those. Part of the reason for doing it this way will be we can tell not just who the receiver is, but who's out there actually running routes on the play. And then hopefully we can also get information about like who's the running back, things like that. And then I'll have to find a way, and this will be, I guess, a little bit of searching for me before next time, to know who is who's an eligible receiver on a play, and who, like the rushes are pretty straightforward because you just have that rush attempt and you know the running back's going to be the one doing it. But we could look into the receiver side of things as well, and try and see, who's more effective as a blocker in the pass play. And then we would need a way to break down on the individual play who was the personnel on the field. So for next time, the goal here is to get this data set kind of switched up to incorporate all the data for players involved in a play instead of who just had the rushing and passing receptions and attempts, and then start to look into individual player effectiveness. And then this will kind of bring a more full picture here, right? So before today, we did not have the even the formation information working correctly. We got that sorted out. So now we could tell on a rush or a pass what the formation was that they were doing here. We also then filtered out the QB kneels because they did not have a formation there, and that was legitimate in the data. It wasn't just because we weren't matching or doing things correctly. And then we now want to incorporate the full picture of all the players that were involved on a given pass or rush attempt to get an idea of how they're affecting the play overall. So next time we will get the data set switched up, and then we'll take a look at the data in those different in that different format, and then we can start to do some basic predictive models where we have the formation before the play, we have the players involved, we know the outcomes for these, but can we actually predict those going forward based on that? So then we're starting to move from the exploration stage into, we'll call this like the model stage. We'll probably do some very basic outcomes here. We can do even just like a logistic model to run versus pass, right? Give very basic model there, and then try and model out the outcomes where hopefully we can tell yardage gained, likely receivers on those passes when it identifies it as a pass, or if it's a rush, who those are going to be, right? And then you can start to see how this would start to come together, right? So let's take that Tampa Bay example from today. We saw here, I know this is receptions, but yeah, Tampa Bay in a given game, they were far more likely to throw from the shotgun formation and run from the single back, right? So even just straightforward prediction like that, they come out in single back, it's 80% likelihood that they are going to rush the ball, and then in the shotgun, it's 80% that they are likely to pass the ball. So like as soon as you see the team line up in that, you would, if you were defense, start to make your adjustments based on what you're seeing there. So have a lot still to get to, but we're making good progress in terms of this. We're not through the data exploration phase, but we are getting to the point now where we are starting to get the information that we need to really start to do some of the predictive models. Here we are focusing just on the offensive side of things. So we're looking at formation. We'll add more information so we have the specific players that are going to be involved in the play. We have information I just saw as well about like the receiver alignment. So a little bit more information beyond just the formation, because you can have a bunch of different looks, like from an empty backfield. Even the I formation can have some different looks based on how things are set up. So that way, we're starting to get a more full picture of how these how the offenses are setting up, and then seeing if we can start to predict the outcome of the play, and then probably some likelihoods. So we'll predict like run pass first, and then the likelihood of, let's say, in this case of Tampa Bay, I don't know, a reception for Mike Evans for 15 yards, something along those lines. So that way we are starting to put together outcomes here. Now I will caveat this as you do have to have information for this to work. So this helps you kind of as the season goes along, but not necessarily out of those first couple of weeks. I think it's here, like the 9 weeks here. Oh, we haven't incorporated like the movement data as well either. That would be like a more advanced version of the model here, right? Just start with some basic stuffs. Once we've got those outcomes, then we start to incorporate more data into the model and see if we can get more powerful predictions, more likelihoods, confidence in those predictions. Then, by adding more fields, it's going to become more and more complex. So overall, good progress for today. Really thought I'd spend more time just figuring out the formation information, but glad with the outcome here. And then, like I said, next time we'll kind of make that shift in the data and then work on doing predictions. So the next stream for this will be on Friday for that. I will be streaming tomorrow. We'll be continuing the work on the AI for Pokemon, playing Pokemon Red. The idea here is that we can get some more improvements. We'll have probably an hour and a half on Friday to 2 hours to work through. So we'll make that adjustment in the table, and then we'll begin doing our prediction. And then tomorrow's stream will probably be about an hour or so. We'll make some changes to the parameters for our Pokemon model, and then kick off the next iteration. And then I'll check on progress of the model since the last time we've done that. So for those of you that are here, thank you for coming, and I will see you all tomorrow.